Rain drizzled softly on the cracked pavement as Alina stood alone at the edge of the gymnasium steps, her prom dress slightly too long despite her 6'1" frame. The glitter on her sleeve sparkled against the dreary sky, but her eyes didn't. She had been excited for this night, like any other high school senior, but the boy who had promised to take her as a friend, because no one else asked her, bailed last minute with a casual, "You'll tower over everyone anyway." It wasn't the first time Alina had been made to feel like a freak. Ever since middle school, when she shot up inches ahead of her classmates, she became the punchline. "How's the weather up there? Shouldn't you be in the WNBA? Who'd date the jolly green giant?" Her heart bore more bruises than anyone could see, but she always smiled. Her mom called it grace under fire, but sometimes it felt like barely treading water. Now, standing there in a dress she and her mom had saved for months to buy, Alina watched as couples and friends disappeared into the glowing gym, laughter spilling out with the music. She turned to walk away, heels clicking against wet concrete, her hopes for the night dissolving with each step. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she walked the mile home in the rain. Her phone buzzed, texts from her classmates mocking her solo arrival and awkward exit. One even included a picture of her from behind, captioned, "Godzilla headed back to her cave." She shut her phone off and shoved it deep in her clutch. That night, as she sat on her bed, legs folded beneath her and makeup streaked across her cheeks, Alina promised herself, she was done trying to fit in. Done apologizing for her height. Done waiting for people to see her heart before her frame. A year later, after graduation, Alina took a job working at a local greenhouse outside of Dallas, Texas. Plants didn't judge her. Flowers didn't care about height. Her hands grew calloused, her skin tanned, and her soul, well, it slowly began to heal. She felt grounded working with the soil, watching things grow. In the quiet between watering rows and labeling herbs, she found a strange peace. Then came Ryder. He first showed up on a sun-drenched afternoon, cowboy hat tipped low, boots caked in mud, and a lopsided grin that made the older ladies in the shop giggle like schoolgirls. Alina didn't think much of him, just another flirty rancher passing through. But Ryder kept showing up. Every Tuesday. Always buying the same lavender plant for his aunt, though it was obvious the woman didn't need 7 lavenders. One afternoon, as Alina handed him the plant, he looked up and said with a smirk, "You ever play basketball?" She rolled her eyes. "Original," she said flatly, beginning to turn away. But Ryder held up his hands. Sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I meant, you look like you could dunk on me." Which is probably true. She eyed him, expecting mockery. But there was none, just a spark of amusement and something soft, unthreatening. "You done flirting with plants, cowboy?" she asked. "Only if you give me a reason to flirt with someone else," he replied, daring but sincere. Against her better judgment, Alina laughed. And for the first time in a long while, it wasn't forced. Over the next few weeks, their banter grew into conversation. Ryder was a 5th-generation rancher from a neighboring town, working hard to keep his late father's land alive. He wasn't flashy, didn't talk much about himself, but when he did, Alina listened. He asked her about herself, not just where she was from, but what made her happy. What broke her heart. What she dreamed about. And one afternoon, when the heat hung thick in the air and they sat together by the greenhouse's side garden, Alina told him. "I used to think I'd become a designer," she said quietly. "I loved drawing clothes. I even made some in high school. But the girls laughed when I wore them. Said they looked like circus tents on me." Ryder was quiet for a moment. Then, with a firm but gentle tone, he said, "Well, they must not know much about beauty. Or strength. Or originality." She looked away, blinking back tears. "Alina," he said, turning to her, "you're not too tall. Everyone else is just too small-minded." Something in her broke. Or maybe something finally healed. That night, When she got home, she dug out her sketchbook from high school, still filled with dresses she had designed for women like her. Tall. Bold. Confident. She ran her fingers across the pages and began sketching again. In the months that followed, Ryder continued showing up. Sometimes he helped her replant herbs. Sometimes they just sat in the garden, legs tangled, sun dipping low. He never made her feel awkward about her height. Never made jokes. When they danced once under the stars at a local barn party, he simply grinned and said, "Good thing I like looking up at angels." But not everyone saw them the same. One afternoon, they walked into a diner, and heads turned. Alina saw the whispers, the stares. One woman leaned over to her friend and said just loud enough, "What's a short man like that doing with a girl like her?" Ryder didn't flinch. But Alina did. She felt herself shrink, the old shame rising again. That night, as they sat in his truck beneath the dark Texas sky, she said softly, maybe we don't make sense." Ryder looked at her, surprised. "You mean to other people?" She nodded. He reached over, taking her hand. "I don't give a damn about other people's sense. You make sense to me." She looked at him, vulnerable and raw. "But you'll always be the cowboy with the tall girl." He squeezed her hand. "Then let them write a song about it. We'll give them something worth singing about." And so, they did. Inspired by Ryder's unwavering support, Alina began designing again. But this time, not for others, for herself. She created tall girl fashion lines, showcasing them on social media. Her videos, where she danced barefoot or strutted in heels unapologetically, began gaining traction. Women from all over the country commented, "Finally, someone who gets it. I'm 5 feet 11 inches and I cried watching this. Thank you for making us feel seen." Soon, her brand Tall and True took off. She hosted pop-up shops in Texas, then California, then New York. Through it all, Ryder remained her biggest fan, sometimes literally cheering her on in the crowd, hat in hand, pride glowing on his face. Years later, standing in front of a crowd at a fashion convention in Dallas, Alina looked out, tears shimmering in her eyes. "I used to think my height was a curse," she said. "I let people make me feel less than, even though I took up more space. But someone once told me I wasn't too tall. Just surrounded by people who were too small-minded." She smiled at Ryder in the front row. "Now I design for girls like me. Girls who were told they were too much, too tall, too anything. Because no one is ever too much for the right person, or the right dream." The crowd erupted into applause. But all Alina saw was the cowboy in the front row, beaming like she'd hung the moon. That night, under the stars outside their small farmhouse, Ryder wrapped his arms around her waist and said, "Told you they'd write a song about us." Alina laughed, leaning into him. "Guess we gave them a good one." And in that quiet moment, surrounded by open fields and endless sky, she realized, sometimes the world discards you for what makes you different. But the right person will see your height, not as a flaw, but as the perfect fit for their heart.